Which of the following is equivalent to 3 times the quantity x plus 5 minus 6? So let's distribute, see what we get. 3x plus 15 minus 6. Okay, combine like terms. 15 minus 6 is 9. 3x plus 9 is C. Short and sweet. The table above shows the kinds of foods that are fed to cats and dogs currently boarded at a pet care facility. What fraction of the dogs are fed only dry food? All right, so this is kinda. Well, it is a two-way table. They added the totals here. So what they care about, what we have to be careful of, because I know it's very tempting to use that 41, but we're not going to use the 41. Let's read this again. What fraction of the dogs are fed only dry food? So for the first time in my entire career, I'm going to say this phrase, and I'll probably never say it again. We don't care about the cats. Ooh, I felt dirty just saying it. I didn't like it. What fraction of the dogs? We only care about the dogs. There's 25 of those. What fraction of the dogs are fed only dry food? So the total dogs are 25. Fed only dry food is going to be 2 of them. 2 out of 25 is going to be my answer. B. Just be careful, of the way it's worded with problems like these, because they try to trick you into thinking it's going to be out of 41, but it's not. It's out of 25. Gotcha. The equation above relates the number of minutes X Maria spends running each day and the number of minutes Y she spends biking each day. So this equation is basically saying running plus biking equals 75. In the equation, what does 75 represent? Well, running minutes plus biking minutes equals the total amount of time she did both. So 75 minutes represents how much running and biking she did. So A says the number of running only. Nope, that's just an X. The number of minutes spent biking only. Nope. The total number of minutes spent running and biking. Yep. Just to be sure, the number of minutes spent biking for each minute spent running, no, has nothing to do with, the one's not dependent on the other. Pretty basic problem. The answer is C, baby. A certain package requires 3 centimeters of tape to be closed securely. What is the maximum number of packages of this type that can be secured with 6 meters of tape? And remember, a meter is 100 centimeters. So 6 meters, 6 times 100 is 100 centimeters. I'm going to divide 600 centimeters of tape over 3 centimeters per box, per package. 600 divided by 3 is a nice 200. C is my answer. Don't overthink it. What they should have done is they should have given you 2, because a lot of people might not remember that it's dealing with meters and centimeters in the conversion. But, they don't do that. We have what we have, and we have 200. The answer is C. A market researcher selected 200 people at random from a group of people who indicated that they liked a certain book. The 200 people were shown a movie based on the book and then asked whether they liked or disliked the movie. Of those surveyed, 95% of the people said they disliked the movie. Oh my gosh. Who directed that movie? Probably M. Night Shyamalan. Which of the following inferences can appropriately be drawn from the survey results? So without looking at the options, right, we have 2 people who read a book and then they made a movie. And almost all of them hated the movie. So basically, if you love the book, you hated this movie, but only for this movie, we'll see. At least 95% of the people who go see movies will dislike this movie. No. At least 95% of people who read books will dislike this movie. No. Most people who dislike this book will like this movie. No. Most people who like this book will dislike this movie. Yes. So they need you to kind of hit a concrete answer based off of the fact that you had people who read this book and watched this exact movie based off of the book, and no one really liked it. So when it brings up outside factors like who go see movies, that is giving you an outside factor that has nothing to do with this book and this movie. Okay, same thing with read books. It's adding outside factors. So get rid of the outside factors and only deal with the facts that you have in front of you. And the answer is D, based off of the facts. Which ordered pair xy satisfies the system of equations shown above? All right, well, probably the easiest way to go about this is doing substitution. I use what's called the blob method. If one of your equations is already solved for a variable, you circle that and prepare to write the other equation, but replace that variable with the blob. So I'm going to rewrite the bottom equation, changing x into y minus 3 because x is y minus 3 over 2 plus 2y equals 6. I can just probably, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the easiest, simplest way to go about this. It's probably if I just divide these ones individually. I was thinking, do I want to multiply everything by 2? But now I'll just divide by 2 minus 3 over 2 plus 2y equals 6. So I can add 3 over 2 to both sides, add 3 over 2 to both sides, y over 2 plus 2y equals, I have a feeling I'm going to want to deal with decimals, so that's 1.5. 6 plus 1.5 is 7.5. These two guys combine. Now, half a y is 0.5y. 0.5y, or half a y, plus 2y is going to be 2.5y equals 7.5. Now you might see why I want to go with the decimal route. Divide both sides by 2.5, and 7.5 divided by 2.5, think money thoughts, is going to be 3. Y is 3. Which puts me at my answer already. Now let's just have some fun, further drive the point home, and take that 3, plug it into the blob. X equals y, which is now 3, and 3 minus 3 is 0. So, for those of you who are insecure, now we definitely know that B was my answer. I used the blob method. It works just fine. Which of the following complex numbers is equal to 5 plus 12i inside parentheses minus 9i squared minus 6i? This is what I'm going to do first. There's a little rule that, I is always going to be I, but if you square an I, it becomes -1. Now, if you're wondering why, well, you can't change I. If I were to take this dude right here and square it, it's now I squared, which I'm going to see right here. I also have to square that. So the square root of -1 squared cancels each other out, and I'm left with just -1. So it's probably just best to remember and memorize the fact that I squared equals -1. Why do I care about that? Well, I can take this second parentheses and replace I squared with -1. So now what I have is 5 plus 12i inside a set of useless parentheses minus 9 times -1 is -9 minus 6i. So let's deal with these parentheses. Let's deal with them. Nothing in front of a parentheses means I don't need them. Okay, there's nothing holding me from keeping that parentheses there. However, a negative in front of a parentheses has you distribute the negative or flip the sign inside everything inside the parentheses. Negative negative 9 is positive 9. Negative negative 6i is positive 6i. Now we combine like terms. Let's get the real numbers out of the way because that's the order that they wanted in. 5 plus 9 is 14. So I'm at my answer already. 12i plus 6i is 18i. There you go. Pretty not bad. You just have to memorize what I squared is. And of course, you know, there's a fun little thing where you could do I cubed, which is negative I. You could do I to the fourth, which is positive 1, and then it repeats. I don't know if you're going to see that on the SATs, but we will find out eventually. If f of x equals x squared minus 6x plus 3 over x minus 1, what is f of negative 1? Well, this is basically just saying, look at all these x's. Turn x into negative 1 and simplify. So let's do that. I'm going to rewrite this entire equation, it is an equation, and replace every x with parentheses negative 1. So I have parentheses negative 1 squared minus 6 times parentheses negative 1 plus 3. My fraction bar wasn't good enough. Parentheses negative 1 minus 1. Why do those parentheses matter? You always have parentheses when you substitute. But since I have negative 1 inside parentheses squared, that becomes positive 1 because negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. If the parentheses aren't there, it's not positive 1. Negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. 6 plus 3. All over negative 1 minus 1, which is negative 2. 1 plus 6 plus 3 is 10. 10 over negative 2 is negative 5. So f of negative 1 is negative 5. A company that makes wildlife videos purchases camera equipment for $32,400. The equipment depreciates, that means loses its value at a constant rate for 12 years, after which it is considered to have no monetary value. So you start out with brand new stuff, costs you $32,400. It loses a certain amount, it loses the same amount, it loses the same amount, it loses the same amount, and after 12 years, you're at zero. Okay, how much is the camera equipment worth 4 years after it's purchased? All right, so let's see how much it loses per year. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the initial value, and since it goes to zero after 12 years and it loses the same amount after 12 years, I'm going to divide by 12. That would be, I don't remember. I'm going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. I don't have enough long division videos on my thing, on my YouTube, so let's do it. 12 goes into 32 twice. 2 times 12 is 24. 32 minus 24 is 8. Drop down the 4. 12 goes into 84. 7. 7 times 12 is 84. Did it right. Good job by me. Yeah, and that becomes 0, and then drop down the 0, and then you become a 0, so 0, 0, 0. All right, so the value of the camera equipment loses or depreciates by $2,700 each year. I care about the total value after 4 years, so I have to find out what 4 times 2,700 is. So 4 times 25 is 100. 4 times 27 would be 108. Add the 2 zeros. So this is not my final answer. Okay, no. This is how much I lose after 4 years. They want how much is the camera equipment worth after those 4 years. So let's take the original value 32400, 32,400. Let's subtract 10,800. Okay, 0, 0, carry the 1, 14 minus the 6. 1, 2, $21,600 is how much that camera equipment is worth after 4 years of value being depreciated. I appreciate that problem. The answer is C. Ken is working this summer as part of a crew on a farm. Oh, good job, Ken. He earned $8 per hour for the first 10 hours he worked this week. Because of his performance, his crew leader raised his salary to $10 per hour for the rest of the week. How nice. Ken saves 90% of his earnings from each week. What is the least number of hours he must work the rest of the week to save at least $270 for the week? So he saves 90% of his earnings. So let's do this. Let's find out how much he has to make total if he saves 90% of it. So 90% of his total earnings, T, is going to be 270. 90% as a decimal is 0.9. So 0.9 T equals 270. Divide both sides by 0.9. And so we're looking at he needs to make $300. So Ken's got to make $300. We'll store that over there in order for him to save $270. Now, my goal is to find out what is the least number of hours he must work the rest of the week to save at least $270. So we're going to get rid of all of this. All right. We're going to get rid of all that. He's already worked $8 an hour for 10 hours. Okay. Now he makes $10 per additional, and he needs to make $300. So I know you're going to become 80. 80 plus 10x has got to equal 300. Let's subtract $80. Let's subtract $80. 10x equals 220. Divide both sides by 10. And you get my favorite Taylor Swift song, 22. So, yeah. So there you have it. If he makes $80 to start out, okay, and he works an additional 22 hours, that gives him 220, thus giving him the 300 he needs, and 90% of 300 is 270. I don't know about you, but I feel good about that answer. And that answer is C. Taylor Swift. Which of the following is equivalent to the expression above? All right. So basically, it's kind of complete the squarey, vertex formy type of problem, but it's not. I guess the long way of doing it would be, let's FOIL that out and add 5 and see what happens. Let's FOIL that out and subtract 5 and see what happens. But I'm going to go a little bit of a different route. I am going to kind of pretend that we have the beginnings of a perfect square right there. Now, in order for me to turn x squared plus 6x into a perfect square, I have to add 9 to it. Now, if I add 9 to something, that's just an expression, I have to subtract 9 somewhere else. Oh, by the way, 4 is just kind of hanging out there. So now what I have is something that FOILs out to x plus 3 squared plus 4 minus 9 is minus 5. So I went about that in a different way, and probably not the best way, but that's kind of how I felt seeing this problem. The easiest way to do it maybe is to FOIL all of these out and then combine like terms. I don't know, whatever floats your boat. But this worked for me. I liked it. I'm sticking with it. The end. The expression x to the negative 2, y to the 1/2, over x to the 1/3, y to the negative 1, where x is bigger than 1 and y is bigger than 1. They have to say that because, of the fractional exponents. And I'll explain what fractional exponents mean in a second, or a couple minutes actually. I have to find out which one of these is equivalent to that. All right, so quick little rule. X to the a over x to the b. If I have powers that are dividing each other and the bases are the same, subtract the exponents. So that's what I'm going to do here. I identify the fact that I have an x up here in the numerator and an x down here in the denominator, and I'm dividing powers of the same base, so I want to subtract exponents. Usually when you have to simplify problems like this, you are required to have the exponent be positive. So I'm going to write out a fraction bar here. The exponent down here is positive. The exponent up here is negative. So I'm going to keep my x on the bottom in the denominator and do 1/3 minus negative 2, which is the same as 1/3 plus 2. Plus 2. I'm going to turn 2 into 6 over 3. So 1/3 minus negative 2 is the same as 7 over 3. Now let's do the same thing with y. I have y to the 1/2 in the numerator, y to the negative first in the denominator. I have to do 1/2 minus negative 1, which is the same as 1/2 plus positive 1, which is 2 over 2. And I get y to the 3 over 2 on the denominator. Numerator, numerator, numerator. Now another fun rule is if you have a fraction for an exponent, this is what I meant when I said we'll deal with it in a second, and then I changed it to a minute. If I have x to the, we'll say m over n. X to the m over n is the same as the nth root of x to the mth power. Okay, it could also be written as this, the nth root of x, all of it to the mth power. But as you can see, we're not going to see that version of the problem in my answer. So I'm going to make this fraction over here look like that. Y to the 3/2 is the same as the square root of y to the 3rd over x to the 7/3 is the same as the cubed root of x to the 7th. Now, in normal circumstances, you would look at a problem like this and be like, that's great. I think I'm done now. Oh, but we're not. They want us to simplify the roots. So I'm moving this over here because I have a little way that I do these. It's kind of, unique to the way I handle it. Maybe not the fastest way to do it. Speaking of not the fastest way to do it, moving all of these one by one probably wasn't the fastest way either, but I was able to talk and vamp. This is how I simplify square roots, cube roots, whatever roots you're dealing with. You take that root and you break it up as much as possible. Y. You take that cube root and you break it up as much as possible. X. If you have a square root, you circle every group of identical factors inside that root. You bring out one of them. If you can't circle any more, you leave it. So after I bring out one of them, I have y times the square root of y. Since this is a cube root, I'm going to circle a group of 3x's and another group of 3x's. I would bring out 2 x's, giving me x squared, and I'm left with the cube root of 1x on the inside. So after all those little rules, all of those little tricks, I have y times the square root of y over x squared times the cube root of x. My answer is D. I love problems like these. And I'm sure you're looking at that and it's like, that took a lot of time. I know, but it's kind of like a puzzle for me. I enjoy it. I love it. Marissa needs to hire at least 10 staff members for an upcoming project. The staff members will be made up of junior directors who will be paid $640 per week and senior directors who will be paid $880 per week. Her budget for paying the staff members is no more than $9,700 per week. She must hire at least 3 junior directors and at least 1 senior director. Which of the following systems of inequalities represents the conditions described if X is the number of juniors and Y is the number of seniors? I'm not going to pay attention to this, not yet. Okay, but it wants me to come up with 4 inequalities for everyone. So let's start with the easy ones first. She must hire at least 3 junior directors. So 3 junior directors is going to be X. X is the number of junior directors. She needs at least 3 of them, which means 3 or more. So X is going to be greater than or equal to 3. Okay, so you work, you don't, and you don't. Y is the number of senior directors, and she needs at least 1 of those. So Y is going to be greater than or equal to 1. So you're still good, you're still good. What else can I do? She must hire, she needs to hire at least 10 staff members. So when you total them up, when you add the staff members, she needs to hire at least 10. And they're made up of junior directors and senior directors only. So X plus Y has to be greater than or equal to 10, which eliminates U. And just for funsies, let's do that final equation. The junior directors, which is X, is going to be paid $640. So 640X. The senior directors is $880. So 880Y. And her budget for paying is no more than, so less than or equal to, $9,700. So there you go. Look at that. A little out of order. But where are we? At a courthouse? Out of order. Maybe they're making a nice jury movie. Like A Time to Kill. That's a good one. 12 Angry Men. The answer is B. The function f is defined by f of x equals x plus 3 and x plus 1 multiplied together. The graph of f in the xy plane is a parabola. That's because if you were to FOIL these out, you would get x squared plus 1x plus 3x, which is 4x, plus 3. Which of the following intervals contains the x coordinate of the vertex of the graph of f? All right, so let's make this as simple as we can. Okay, when you graph a parabola and it gives it to you in factored form, I know what my zeros are. So let me see if I can scooch this over. My zeros are going to be -1 and -3. Now, if you're wondering, wait, why negatives? That's +1 and +3. Because the zero product property says that if I have 0 equals that, then my roots My roots, which is where my parabola crosses the x-axis, are going to be when x plus 3 is equal to 0 and when x plus 1 is equal to 0. So if you subtract 3 and subtract 1, you'll get negative 3 and negative 1. This is a parabola. Okay, parabolas take a U shape, and I know I'm going to botch the way this looks, so you know what? I will give myself plenty of credit. There's my vertex. Since this is all symmetric and stuff, my vertex has to live in between negative 3 and negative 1 no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. So here the options that it's giving me are negative 3 and positive 1 for the x-coordinate, which is true. I don't know why it just didn't give it to me as negative 3 and negative 1, but it can't be in between negative 4 and negative 3, which is here. It can't be between 1 and 3, which is here, and it can't be between 3 and 4, which is here. So I'm not sure why that they gave me this as an option, maybe to confuse me, but I don't know, I wasn't confused. Wasn't confused at all. Look at this cute little picture that I drew. I love it. Love it so much. The answer is B. The expression 1/3 x squared minus 2 can be rewritten as 1/3 x minus k times x plus k, parentheses, parentheses, parentheses. K is a positive constant. What is the value of k? So this is how I'm going to approach it. Okay. I'm going to remove the 1/3 from the equation quite literally. But when I do that, when I factor out a 1/3, when I bring a 1/3 out here, I have to divide 1/3 from both of these guys. Okay. Now, when I divide 1/3 out of x squared, that's easy. When I divide 1/3 from negative 2, it's not going to be 2 over 3. Remember, when you divide a third from something, and in this case, we're dividing a third from, we'll just say 2 because I have that negative there already. Dividing by a fraction means multiplying their reciprocal. Okay, so dividing a fraction means multiplying the reciprocal. If I divide by a third, I'm multiplying by 3 over 1. So I get 6. Now, this comes from the concept that I have and they want me to make this a difference of squares. What's difference of squares? Difference of squares says that if I have x minus k times x plus k, that comes from x squared minus k squared. So in order to make this look like that, in order to factor that using difference of squares, I have my 1/3 still living out there. It's still there. And if I'm going to factor that out, I have a positive, I have a negative. I take the square root of that guy, which is x and x, and put it right there. I take the square root of that guy, which is square root of 6 and square root of 6, and put it right there and right there. Now that looks like that. So if I were to FOIL this whole thing out, I would get that. What's the value of k? K is the square root of 6. Very advanced problem, very tricky. But those of you who have a math mind, you could probably figure that out. Now, a way that you could do this is you could just say, well, why don't I just, pretend that k is 2, FOIL that out, and then multiply it by a third and find out that I'm wrong. And then pretend that k is 6 and FOIL that out and multiply by a third and find out that I'm wrong. You can. That'll take some time, and maybe that time will be longer than doing it the way I did. But again, two different ways of doing it. One way is a pain in the butt, and the other way is also a pain in the butt. So which kind of pain are you willing to deal with? Pain in the butt door 1 or pain in the butt door number 2? You decide. The answer is D. Which of the following expressions is equivalent to the one above? All right, so we have a polynomial in parentheses minus a polynomial in parentheses. Rule of thumb, if there's nothing in front of the parentheses, get rid of them. You don't need them. However, if there's just a negative in front of the parentheses, distribute the negative. What that does is it takes every symbol inside the parentheses and flips the parentheses. Negative 3x squared is positive 3x squared. Positive 5 is negative 5. Now let's combine like terms. It looks like they want it in standard form because of the fact that they have the x squared first. So let's combine 1x squared plus 3x squared gives us 4x squared. And negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. And that gives me u. A. Combining like terms, distributed property, all good stuff in there. In the equation ax plus 3 in parentheses squared equals 36, a is a constant. Yeah, we know that. Actually, a is a coefficient, but whatever. If x is negative 3, if x is negative 3 is one solution to the equation, what is the possible value of a? All right, so let's figure it out. Let's plug in negative. So I'm looking this is ax, but I'm going to swap things and make x negative 3. I'm going to put a right there. Plus 3 squared equals 36. What I'm going to do is I could FOIL this out, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at all. I'm going to kind of this looks very much like completing the square. So, and since I see a number over here that's 36, I know that square rooting both sides is going to be very good for me. Now, be very, very, very careful. When you square root both sides, attach the plus or minus symbol to the right side. So the right side is the square root of 36 with a positive or negative symbol attached, positive or negative 6. Now, on the left side, the square root of blah, blah, blah squared is blah, blah, blah. They cancel each other out. Now what I have is I have two separate equations. Negative 3a plus 3 equals positive 6, and negative 3a plus 3 equals negative 6. I'm going to get two answers. They only want one of them, so let's find out which one we need. Subtract 3 from both sides. Negative 3a is going to be 3. Divide both sides by negative 3. And one of my possible solutions is 3 divided by negative 3, which is negative 1. So I have my answer. Now, let's just do the other one just for funsies. Subtract 3, subtract 3. Negative 3a is negative 6. Divide everything by negative 3. And your other possible solution is going to be regular 3. They don't give us that option, but it only asked for one possible value of a. So one possible value of a was negative 1, which means a is negative 3. I'm sorry, x is negative 3, a is negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 3 is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 squared is 36. Yeah, I guess I did it right. The answer is C. Which of the following ordered pairs satisfies the inequality 5x minus 3y is less than 4? All right, so it gives me three inequalities, and I have to make sure which one of these works, so let's test them all. Remember, the left numbers are x values, the right numbers are y values, so let's check all of them and make sure they work. 5 times 1 minus 3 times 1, y is 1, x is 1, it's got to be less than 4. That becomes 5 minus 3. That's got to be less than 4. And 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 is less than 4? Yup. Let's do it again. 5 times my x value, which is 2, minus 3 times my y value, which is 5, has to be less than 4. That becomes 10 minus 15 has to be less than 4. 10 minus 15 is negative 5. Negative 5 is less than 4. That works. And so I know my answer already, but you know what? We already started this. Let's keep going. 5 times my x value is 5 times 3 minus 3 times my y value is 2. It's got to be less than 4. 5 times 3 becomes 15. 3 times 2 is going to become 6. 15 minus 6 is 9. 9 is less than 4. Nope. 1 and 2 only. C is my guy. That's it. Which of the following expressions is equivalent to x squared minus 2x minus 5 over x minus 3? Okay, so normally when I look at a problem like this, I go through thoughts that go like this. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for something like this to happen. Well, that's not going to happen. How do I know that's not going to happen? Because look at the answers that I have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the good old-fashioned long division method of dividing polynomials. Although you can use synthetic. So why don't I do this? I'm going to make an extra long video and I'm going to show you how to do this using long division. And I'm going to remind you how to do this using synthetic. And the 4 of you who watch these videos can figure out which one you like best. So this is the long division way of doing it. All right, I'm going to set it up. X minus 3. Make sure that that's in standard form. Make sure nothing in the middle is missing. X squared minus 2x minus 5. Just like regular long division, you ask yourself, x times what gives me x squared? Well, x times x gives me x squared. Take that x and multiply it to this whole factor right here. X times x is x squared. That'll always happen. X times negative 3x, or negative 3 is negative 3x. Now you subtract this entire chunk right here. And when you subtract the entire chunk, you flip the signs of everything. So you go away. Negative 2x plus 3x is regular 1x. Repeat. X times what is x? 1. Take that 1 and multiply it to this whole thing right here. Okay, although also, and I should have done this earlier, shame on me, I needed to drop down to minus 5. That'll help. That'll help a lot. All right, 1 times x is x. 1 times negative 3 is 3. Now I have to subtract this entire x minus 3, which requires me to flip the signs. And that gives me a remainder of negative 2. Now, when you have a remainder of negative 2, you take that, make it a denominator of a fraction, make that a numerator of a fraction whose denominator is the factor. So if I were to write all this out, x plus 1, let's bring the negative out front, minus 2 over x minus 3. The answer is D. Now that's long division. Okay, that's polynomial long division. All right, usually we don't have to do that because the numbers are nice enough, and I showed you where if I had parentheses and things crossed out, life would be easy. And if it was that easy, if that was the case, you get a remainder of 0 and you wouldn't have to worry about all this mess. Well, we had to worry about it. And the other way of doing this could be synthetic division. Now, how do you do synthetic division? Let's set it up. It's been a while for me, but I like synthetic. Okay. In here, the numbers that you're going to put on this large-looking L thing are going to be the coefficients of what you have up here. So the 1, negative 2, and negative 5. What you have in this little box here is going to be the root that you're going to use. The root that we're going to use is going to be the opposite of that guy right there, which is positive 3. Step number 1 is always drop down the 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Put it right there. Add these guys. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Drop down the negative 2. Now, what's 1 remainder of negative 2 means? Well, if you have a remainder of negative 2 is going to live in the numerator, and in the denominator is going to be your original factor, just like last time. What about that 1 and that 1? You work your way left, okay? Attach nothing, attach an x, and then if you were to keep going, attach an x squared, attach an x cubed, blah, 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 blah. Cleaning this up, I don't need that 1 anymore. That 1 is still a 1. Bring out that negative 2 over x minus 3. So a little double whammy for you. A little synthetic, a little long division, lots and lots and lots of fun. Either way, we got the same answer, and that answer was D. D for delightful. A shipping service restricts the dimensions of the boxes it will ship for a certain type of service. Okay? The restriction states that for boxes shaped like rectangular prisms, boxes, the sum of the perimeter of the base of the box and the height of the box cannot exceed 130 inches. All right, the sum of the perimeter of the base of the box. So let's draw a picture. Here's my box that I'm drawing. All right, so length, width, the sum of the perimeter of the base of the box. So the base of the box is LW. So 2 L's plus 2 W's. And there was something else here of the base of the box. And the height of the box, so plus H, cannot exceed, so must be less than or equal to 130 inches. All right, just getting stuff written down because I don't read these problems ahead of time, so I just want it written down. The perimeter of the base is determined using the width and the length of the box. Yes, if a box has a height of 60 inches and the length is 2.5 times the width, so let's change some things. All right, let's change some things. The length is 2.5 times the width. So now I have 2, the length is 2.5 times the width, plus 2 widths, and it mentioned that the height is 60 plus 60 has got to be less than or equal to 130. Okay, which inequality shows the allowable width of the box. All right, so let's move this stuff up here. They're using x instead of w. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite that. 2 times 2.5w is now going to be 5x. Plus 2w is now going to be plus 2x, plus 60 is less than or equal to 130. 7x, if I subtract both sides by 60, I get 70, divide by 7, and moving it down here, x is going to be less than or equal to 10. Now, they're giving me an in-between because you can't have negative measurements. So at the end of the day, what I have is my x, which is my width, has got to be 10 inches or smaller, but also bigger than 0. So the answer is A. Kind of weird. Didn't like it, but, we figured it out the way that I did it, so it works. Very sloppy. Don't like that. In the equation above, A, B, C, and D are constants. Okay. Technically, they're coefficients and a constant, but, who's counting? If the equation has roots of -1, -3, and 5, which of the following is a factor of that? Well, if it has roots, that means whatever equation this is, right? Whatever the equation looks like, and I'm not going to draw a picture out. I don't want to, but I'm going to put -3, -1, and 5 here. My equation is going to hit -3, -1, and 5, which means it has factors of x plus 3, think zero product property, x plus 3, x plus 1, and x minus 5, which gives me my answer right there. I'm not sure what all this is about. I'm not sure why any of this was necessary. Maybe it just wanted to give me like a standard form. I don't know. But it could have said if you have a trinomial or a cubic with roots of -1, -3, and 5, I could have gone right to my answer right there, which is that. So kind of weird. Didn't like it. Wasn't hard though. Just I didn't like it. If 2x plus 8 equals 16, what is the value of x plus 4? Okay, subtract 8. Subtract 8. 2x equals 16 minus 8 is 8. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. X equals 4. They want x plus 4, which is the same as 4 plus 4, which is 8. So this is one of those grid-in problems where you're going to have to write out 8. No multiple choices to help us out. Done and done. The number of radians in a 720-degree angle can be written as a pi, where a is a constant. All right, what is the value of a? So we're used to doing measuring angles using degrees, but radians is also another thing that we can use. 180 degrees, let me get out a pen. 180 degrees is the exact same thing as pi radians. So if I wanted to find out that 270 or 720 is equal to pi a, let's divide 720 divided by 180. We will get 4. So 720 divided by 480 is pi radians. 4 pi radians. So in this guy, it's asking me what is A? A is a constant. A is 4. A is 4. So this is a grid-in where you're just going to write out 4. 4 pi is the same thing as 720 degrees. Kind of a strange trig problem, but worked out. In the figure above, MQ, which is that whole thing, and NR, which is that whole thing, intersect at point P. So let's just fill that in quick. I don't know if this is going to do anything. Those are vertical. These are straight angles, so that would add up to 180, making this 120, making you 120. By the way, I might be wasting my time here, but let's see what happens. If you're 70 and you're 60, that adds up to 130, making you 50, because 180 minus 70 minus 60 is 50. That's all the information I got so far. Maybe more can happen. We'll see. NP is equal to QP. NP is equal to QP. MP is equal to PR. All right, so what we have is we have these two triangles are the same as these two triangles because we have side angle side working against side angle side, which tells me that you're going to be 70 degrees. No, you're not. You're going to be 50 degrees. Because these two are the same, therefore these two angles are the same. These two angles are the same. What else do I know? What is the measure in degrees of QMR? QMR. All right, so what I also know, so all of this that I just did was kind of a waste, but that's all right, I had fun. What we have here is an isosceles triangle. We are now focusing on QMR, which is this angle right here. This angle is a part of this big triangle right here. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. It looks terrible, but you get the idea. In a isosceles triangle, these two angles, okay, the vertex angles are exactly the same. So if an entire triangle adds up to 180, we have 120 plus, we'll call UX, 2x is going to equal 180. Subtract both sides by 120, subtract both sides by 120, 2x is going to equal 60, divide by 2, x is going to equal 30. Disregard the degree symbol when gridding your answer. I'm going to listen. But that's what we have. That's what we have. So you're 30, you're 20, everything adds up. All of these extra angles are just for fun, for future reference, I guess. The expression above can be written in the form a y squared plus b, where a and b are constants. What is the value of a plus b? All right, so we have ourselves like this weird-looking polynomial thing. Well, let me try to combine like terms, do some distributed property, whatever I have to do. If you have nothing in front of a parentheses, get rid of the parentheses. So I'm rewriting that first parentheses without the parentheses, and it looks like that. This guy I'm going to distribute, so plus 100 y squared minus 1,100. They want it in the form of a y squared plus b. So let me deal with the y squareds first, combine like terms. 200 y squared. And here are my constants. Let's combine those, which are going to be 7,532 minus 1,100 is going to be 6,432. Now that is in the form a y squared plus b, which makes u 200 my a and u 6,432 my b. I need to find out what a plus b is. So 200 plus 6,432 is going to be 6,632. And that is a grid-in answer that we just write in using our number 2 pencils. Dos lápiz. 2 pencil. Número dos lápiz. The answer is 6,632. The graph of a line in the xy plane passes through the point 1, 4 and crosses the x-axis at a point of 2, 0. The line crosses the y-axis at a point 0, b. What is the value of b? So I'm given information where I should be able to find a slope, and I'm being asked to find the y-intercept. Why don't I just use slope-intercept form? Y equals mx plus b. When y is all by itself, the number in front of x is the slope, and the number floating around is the b. Some people might want to use point-slope form. I do like point-slope form, but I don't know. I think this would be a little bit more convenient. I guess we'll find out. First things first is we have to find what the slope is. So the slope is given to us by the formula y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. I'm going to label my points x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. And just plug stuff in. Y sub 2 is 0, minus is minus, y sub 1 is 1, over x sub 2 is 2, minus is minus, x sub 1 is 1, I did something wrong. Y sub 1 is 4. Yeah, I knew that wasn't looking right. Y sub 1 is 4, so I backed it up. Y sub 1 is 4. Didn't make a mistake. Almost did, though. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. 2 minus 1 is regular 1. And so my slope is negative 4. Now, what I have so far when I put stuff together is y equals negative 4x plus b. Fun fact, b is what we're trying to find. So once I have it this far, I can take any one of my points, call one of them xy, plug it in, that'll get me b. So why don't I use the easy one, call you xy. Okay, so y becomes 0. Negative 4 times x is going to be negative 4 times 2 plus b. 0 is equal to negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus b. Add 8 to both sides. And b equals 8, which means my y-intercept is 8. So the equation that I get altogether, and this is just me doing a little above and beyond, is going to be negative 4x plus 8. But what's really important is the fact that I was being asked to find the value b. B is the y-axis, the y-intercept, so b is going to be 8. There you have it.